September and October were absolutely packed with new cozy releases, and if you're having trouble deciding which ones are worth your money, then stick around because I'll be reviewing every cozy game I played recently. Hello cozy gamers, I'm Ellie and welcome to the Cozy Gaming Club where we talk about all the latest and greatest cozy games. Starting with perhaps one of the most anticipated releases for September, Chef RPG. If, like me, you've been waiting literally years for this game to release, then you may have been disappointed to see that early access tag. There is nothing worse than your most anticipated game releasing and not knowing whether it's worth the price yet because it's not finished. Fortunately, the devs were kind enough to gift me a key to Chef RPG to check it out ahead of launch, and I've put together an overview of the first 2 acts in the game which you can find here. If you don't know about this game, it's a pixel art cooking life sim which starts with you arriving in the small seaside town of White Ash Harbour, determined to bring the rundown Lesser Choir back to life. The only issue is that a big shot reviewer has found out about your plan, and is determined to leave you a review so bad that you'll be out of business before you can even get started. Now, as you may have guessed, this game is not finished. There are currently 3 acts available, with more coming later, but the great news is that your save will not be wiped at 1.0 release. So if you want to play all the available story now, you can continue it at a later date. There is a lot of content here already though. I've played almost 13 hours of the game to complete the first 2 acts, and supposedly it'll take over 20 to complete the third. Although the most important thing is that there are no deadlines for you to meet, so you can consume this game at your own pace. If you want to spend 3 days in a row just collecting resources, then go at it. From gathering plants to hunting animals and fishing, or even just purchasing from the stores in town, there's a lot of variety when it comes to stocking your refrigerator, and when it comes to your menu itself. Whether you want to have meat on the menu, go pescatarian or vegetarian, you can do that. At the start of the game, you're given the option to choose what sort of expertise you want, which dictates the starting recipes you receive. Then you can collect more as they'll randomly turn up in the shops for sale, or in the library if you have the bookworm skill. You can customize your menu every day in the restaurant, and even what type of restaurant you want to run, including a bar that specializes in drinks or a dessert place, and each comes with their own perks. I love how customizable it is, and there really are a ton of delicious looking recipes to discover. I think over 100 in the game in total. Each piece of equipment in your restaurant, whether that's your oven or your blender, has a unique minigame attached to it, and the better you do in that minigame, the higher the quality for your dish. The game does have an auto-cook feature that will cook the dishes for you if you don't want to play the minigame, although there is a small punishment for this where your dish quality will be lower based on your cooking skill level. Hopefully the dev does consider improving this in the future though, because even with my cooking skill maxed out, I still only averaged around 70 cooking quality for my dishes. But to actually unlock the auto-cook feature, you need to achieve 100% perfection on each piece of equipment, which isn't easy if you're not good at them and really isn't accessible for some players. I will say that the hunting and fishing aren't perfect either, and take a little time to get a hang of. The hitboxes for hunting are so small, and even when it feels like you should be hitting the animals, sometimes your arrows go straight through them, or just gather around them like this. Fishing feels very unforgiving as well, where fish often leave the circle before you even have a chance to react to the minigame starting, and it feels impossible to get them back in even when pushing your keys in the right direction. When it comes to the plot, I actually really like the plot of the game. The idea of reviving an old restaurant that belongs to your teacher is a real rags to riches story, especially with the evil reviewer breathing down your neck. Personally, I do think the flow of the plot could be improved though. At the start of the game, I think it took a whole week of gameplay before the plot kicked off, and the entire time I felt like I was doing something wrong. I wasn't supposed to be cooking because I hadn't done my soft opening yet, but there really wasn't much else to do. Patching up bits like this where I felt lost and almost quit would really help to smooth out the gameplay. After that though, I felt like new quests were appearing almost every day and I immediately was enraptured by the game. There are so many other things I could say about Chef RPG, but I feel like I've been going on about it for far too long already. So here are some quick-fire thoughts I have about things I like and things I didn't like. Firstly, there is no controller support at all at the moment, which is really sad as I usually exclusively use controllers. It does work on Steam Deck and it is playable, but it's not amazing, especially as it lacks control symbols to let you know which buttons do which actions. But this is a high priority for the developers, and they are apparently going to be updating it in November, so this month with controller support. So maybe keep an eye out for that if controller is important to you. When it comes to the villagers, it's very hard to know where they are in the early game as the map doesn't show their location. I feel like this is becoming very common in most cozy games, so for it to be locked behind friendship levels in the later game feels bad. Especially as you barely know who they are, or their schedules, or even your way around in the beginning, but by the time you've befriended them, you will. Besides that, the pixel art is gorgeous. I loved experiencing the different seasons and seeing how the environment changed, and I also loved the idea of this futuristic world where robots and humans coexist. I think the addition of tea to keep your staff energized was a fun idea, although I do think the decorating could be improved slightly, as even after filling my restaurant with plants and nice tables and furniture that all matched, I still had a negative decorating score. Oh, and the addition of the skill trees and skill systems was a really nice touch that let me customize my gameplay a little too. Overall, I did like this one, but it definitely has some quality of life features that need addressing. I'm excited to leave it to brew during its early access, and I'll probably check back in again at 1.0. I was pleasantly surprised by this next game, which I wasn't really expecting much of, if I'm being honest. The Hidden Art of Innkeeping is a sequel to The Lost Art of Innkeeping, although you don't need to have played the first one to play this one. After a dreadful stay at the only hotel by the beach, a ridiculous late fee, and a series of unfortunate events that lead to you missing your train home, you decide to open your own inn to compete, and so begins the game. Despite the first game having a 98% positive rating on Steam, it has less than 100 reviews. But this did leave me cautiously optimistic, and I actually really enjoyed this game. I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for a management game that's doing things a little bit different. But why is it different? Well, for starters, there are no time restrictions, not in the usual way anyway. Instead, the game is split up into segments, and you can move time forward at will. Your day starts with checking out your customers, and then you're in setup mode. This mode lasts as long as you want until you decide it's time to check in your customers for today. After check-in, you enter leisure time, and again this lasts as long as you want until you decide to go to sleep. This removes all time pressures from the game, which is great because some aspects of this game are a real conundrum. However, there is a 30-day limit for the main questline, but you can extend this to 40 days if you wish at the start of the game. Ultimately, this means you can play the game at your own pace, which is great because it's not easy to turn a rundown farmhouse into a 5-star inn. Right from the start of the game, you'll realize that completing quests isn't as simple as other games. When it comes to mosquitoes plaguing your house, for example, it turns out you need to empty the well outside to stop them breeding, using a rope you find in the kitchen and a bucket from the beach. A lot of the quests are like this, where you need to find items you need around town or think outside of the box to complete quests. Some of the quests also have multiple ways to complete them. Early on in the game, you'll find a peacock that's keeping up the owner of the grocery store with its mating calls. One of the regulars at the inn is a hunter who you can ask to take care of it, or you can try and find it a mate. I thought this aspect of the game was so well done, and with all the extra time granted to you during setup or leisure, I didn't find myself running around stressed while searching for the items I needed. Although I would recommend running. The walking in this game is so slow, but you can toggle on running permanently in the settings, and I would definitely recommend this. Another thing I liked was the process of checking in guests. Every guest has their own preferences, from food to bed size to even if there are pets staying in the hotel or not. All of this information is provided to you in the guest tab, as well as the day they'll be visiting next, so that checking your guests in becomes more methodical and logistical than just putting anyone anywhere. I love puzzle games, and I think this really pleased that part of my brain as I manipulated the rooms and layouts to fit as many guests as possible. Which is also important for furthering quests, as often certain guests will be linked to them. One final thing I want to mention is how fantastical the world is. When I started, I was expecting just a normal world like ours, but there are vampires, fairies, and other magical creatures to discover too. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised by this game, and at £6.69, it's an absolute steal. I was gifted a key for this though, and it took me around 6 hours to complete my first playthrough. But I do kind of want to go back and do things a little differently and see if I can get a different ending. The next game I want to talk about is an open world adventure game that's a lot more forgiving than most because there are no enemies trying to kill you, and possibly more importantly for an open world game, no fall damage. In Caravan Sandwich, you play as Saug, a young woman who has returned to her home planet in search of her sister. After her disappearance 6 years ago, Saug had all but given up on seeing her sister again, until she receives a distress signal from her ship. Now she's back home on a planet that has certainly seen better days, ravaged by the mining operations that were carried out here. But her friends are here, and her father, and maybe also her sister. With a newly acquired van, you can head out across this desolate planet, searching for clues by tapping into the ancient machinery that has been left behind. Explore the ruins of the advanced manufacturing complexes and the abandoned vehicles and buildings that are all that remains of this mining enterprise. Along the way, you'll learn new mechanics to reach different locations and better explore the world around you. And there is plenty to explore. While the map isn't huge, especially with your trusty van and fast travel points to help you traverse faster, there are a range of environments and locations to explore. The coastal areas with the lapping, but possibly deadly, sea are beautiful, but there's also a dense forest that's home to the amphibian creatures, and of course your hometown, which is built into the tall walls of a canyon. Every location in this game is a sight to behold, which makes exploring it even more enjoyable, although you will need to go back and forth quite a few times before you finish the game. Caravan Sandwich was a fun experience, and it took me around 7 hours to complete it, played entirely and without issues on my Steam Deck. My main complaint about this game is that I felt, especially in the later game, it lacked guidance for what to do next. There was one quest in particular where I probably spent upwards of an hour driving around trying to work out what I needed to do next. The quest marker was no help, and I probably would have given up on the game at this point if it wasn't for my friend giving me a hint as to what to do. I'm glad I persevered though, because the ending wrapped everything up well, and I would have felt terrible if I quit this game right before I finished it. Some other things I like is that the game has incredible quality of life features, like the ability to teleport directly back to your van after you've climbed up a massive cliff to complete a quest or find a collectible, and you can also teleport back to the main town as well, rather than having to drive all the way back there. There is a lot to love about this game, and if it wasn't for the issues I had towards the end, I think I would have enjoyed it so much more. So, if you're looking for an exploration game with no combat, then check out Caravan Sandwich. On the other hand, if you're looking for a farming a life sim that's doing things a little different, then let me tell you all about Shinehill. In this cozy farming game, you're an alien who has been sent to Earth to determine if it's a suitable planet for your species to move to. You'll need to go undercover as a human and try to fit in with the local villagers to avoid raising their suspicions. So you'll need to tend to your farm, help out around town, and raise animals while also trying to complete your secret mission. I really liked how this game lent into the theme that they're going for, from secret bunkers to space flight and cool gadgets. There are loads of science fiction mechanics packed into this farming game. I particularly like the moments where your alien self shares their often not very nice thoughts, or when they have absolutely no remorse for doing something a bit immoral. The underlying mystery in this game is also very intriguing, and it was fun seeing the plot unfold and where it went next. On the other hand, I do think the devs may have gone a little bit too far with the minigames. Occasionally, to carry out a task in the game, there will be a minigame that you need to complete in order to proceed. This could be something as normal as a fishing minigame, but also for catching creatures and other plot events. I just felt like they happen too often. The devs have said they get easier as you level up though. One other thing I'm looking forward to the devs adding in early access is fast travel, because the map in this game is huge and it can take a while to run from one end to the other, so having fast travel to move around the map quickly would be game changing. In total, it took me around 4 hours to complete all of the plot content that's currently available, but you could also keep playing and spend time romancing the townsfolk and finishing the side quests. It runs perfectly on Steam Deck, and I didn't encounter any bugs while playing, which is amazing for an early access title. Overall, Shinehill offers a unique twist on the genre, and at just £9, it's incredibly cheap and definitely worth checking out. If you're still on the fence, I've got a video of my first week in the game to give you a taste of what to expect. But not all the content is available yet, so you may want to wait until full release if that's a deal breaker for you. We're moving from aliens to dinosaurs in this next game, where you're setting up your own shop in a prehistoric town. This game is called Amber Isle, and it was gifted to me by the publishers to cover ahead of release. Now, I've been seeing a lot of mixed reviews about this game, and I guess I'm just one of the lucky ones, because in the 10+ hours I've played, I've had no bugs at all. Well, I had one teeny tiny bug where I talked to someone one time and they weren't actually there, but I'm pretty sure that was my fault. Otherwise, I've had a very pleasant and bug-free experience with Amber Isle, and it's been a lot of fun. Let's start with the character creator, which is one of the most impressive character creators I have ever used. It feels like you can control every aspect of your dinosaur creation, from their head shape to where their spikes are to their tail and even their tongue length for some reason. Not to mention you can customize every part with a wide range of colors that really lets you create your dream dinosaur. It's so in-depth, and if you change your mind later, you can change your character at any time in a mirror in your room. As the story unfolds, you'll open up your store and begin to pay back the debt you owe to the town of Amber Isle. But that won't be easy. You'll need to collect resources from the meadows and woods around town and use them to craft items you can sell in your store. Over time, you'll be able to unlock more recipes that you can craft, and there are a lot of different options. The more times you craft an item, the better you get at it, raising its level and base price, and the more money you can make. It's a typical shopkeeping game, but there's also a little bit of Animal Crossing's island management thrown in as well. As your shop grows in prestige, your island will receive new villagers who want to move in. So, as well as running your shop, you'll also be in charge of clearing room and building new homes around the island. There's a lot to do in Amber Isle, but I also want to mention some of the downsides of the game as well. The camera was one of my biggest gripes. You can zoom in and out as well as rotate the camera to change how you're looking at the world around you, whether that's top down or isometric or front on. But with every new area you enter, it pops back to the original position, and I don't think there's a way to fix it. I also found the shopkeeping a little too simple and without challenge. I like that they added cleaning to keep the shop gameplay a little interesting, but the haggling felt useless as you could barely move their original offer. And even when I priced my products as high as I could, I received no pushback from my customers. The tutorial may also be a little overbearing for some players as it takes over an hour to complete, but I didn't mind it much personally. As I've said before, people have been having a very buggy experience with this one, but I've somehow been lucky enough to avoid all the bugs, so I've actually quite enjoyed it. But that's still something you should be aware of when considering this title, as you may not be as lucky. I also played a good chunk of it on the Steam Deck, also with no issues. If you do decide to check Amber Isle out, make sure to watch my video of tips and tricks to help you get started. This next game has also been struck down by the buggy gods, but I once again miraculously somehow avoided them all. Fruitbus is a wholesome cooking game where you take over your grandma's food truck after she's passed away, and drive it around feeding the citizens and visitors of a small archipelago. Along the way, you'll need to forage for fruit and vegetables to add to your recipes, and you can use any profit you make to upgrade your Fruitbus and unlock new machines, storage options, and decorations. There is, of course, also the main story to focus on when you're not cooking up a storm, which is that you're trying to convince your grandma's old friends and customers to come to a final hoorah in her honor. Sadly, they all need a little persuading, which makes me wonder if they should even be invited in the first place, but that's all part of the game. Complete their request to cook special meals and make them feel something again, and hopefully by the end of the game you'll be able to bring the island together to celebrate your grandma. At its heart, I would say Fruitbus is a game about exploration. You'll spend much of it traveling from location to location to search for a new ingredient that you haven't discovered yet, or complete a quest for an NPC. And there are a lot of locations to explore with multiple islands and biomes to discover. Each island has new ingredients and equipment as well as new customers to meet, and the best part is there are no time pressures in this game. You can play at your own pace and complete quests slowly over time while managing your booming food truck business. Even when putting in a shift at the food truck, your customers are super patient, to the point that you can leave them to go shopping without them getting annoyed. One of my biggest drawbacks is that there could be a lot more information given for things. For example, I've told so many of my friends about eating the glowing meals as this isn't mentioned at all in the game's tutorials, and it's really easy to miss because the taste button is tiny. Eating these meals unlocks cutscenes that gives you hints for your quests, so they're pretty important, and there are other instances like this in the game too. But this goes a step further because after the cutscene, nothing is recorded, and as far as I can tell, there's no way to view the cutscene again, which isn't very helpful if you're playing across multiple real-life days. Despite those issues though, I did really enjoy this game. It's wholesome and laid back, and I feel like it's something you could spend a lot of hours playing. But just like Amber Isle, if you get hit by those bugs, it may not be as enjoyable an experience for you. So it may be worth holding off till they've released a few patches. I actually spent so long editing this video that I finished another game, and decided to squeeze it in. After playing Gris, I really thought this game was going to be another cozy puzzle experience, given that it's made by the same people. And while there were moments of puzzle, I definitely wouldn't call this game cozy. But I wanted to cover it for anyone else who didn't realise how combat heavy Neva actually is. While there were a few hints of combat in the trailer, I was surprised by just how much combat there was. There are boss battles, you've got lives, and the combat can be brutal, especially when there are multiple enemies swarming you at once. But I would still recommend playing this one, as I think I actually preferred it to Gris. For starters, there is a cozy mode where you don't take damage during combat, which makes it a lot easier. The biggest selling point for me was the story. While, like Gris, there is no dialogue in this game, I think it does a much better job at conveying the story behind the action through the various cutscenes. They can be a little gruesome at times, but you always get a little warning if that's going to happen, as it will pause to give you time to look away. I also love Neva so much and will kill anyone who tries to hurt her. The world is also gorgeous to explore. I think this is probably the game I have taken the most screenshots of. I am not joking. I think I have over 20 screenshots of different scenes in this game. There are also collectibles, and while there's still platforming, I didn't find it nearly as difficult as Gris's platforming. If you do play though, I would definitely recommend bringing tissues. I think I ended up crying in the first 20 minutes, so make sure you have some on standby just in case. Neva is a really fun adventure though, and we're actually playing it this month for our Cozy Game Club game, so if you do want to play it, you can join my Discord and play along with us all. This next one is so tough for me to review. I admit that I haven't finished it yet, and I really thought I was going to love it because it is so heavily inspired by another game that I really enjoyed. Let's start at the beginning. Bloomtown: A Different Story is a game about a young girl named Emily and her little brother Chester, who are sent to live with their grandfather for the summer. But things take a turn for the weird when children start disappearing, strange demons appear all over town, and Emily starts getting visited by Lucifer in her dreams. From there, it becomes very Stranger Things, in that you play as a group of kids taking on the big bad in their small town. Gameplay-wise, Bloomtown is heavily inspired by Persona. Now, I have only played Persona 5, but you can feel the inspiration in almost every aspect of the game. From making a deal with the devil to get a persona that you can use in combat in the Underside, to your allies also getting personas to be able to capture demons to use in battle as well. But it goes so much deeper than that. All of your allies are represented by a tarot card, and you can improve your relationship with them. You can also fuse demons or read books to unlock new skills and craft lockpicks to open chests and doors in the Underside. It's very on the nose that this game is inspired by Persona. It does have its own unique aspects as well though. The pixel art style for starters is gorgeous, and I'm not surprised as this game is made by the team behind Graveyard Keeper and Bandle Tale: A League of Legends story. The amount of detail that has gone into this art style is just incredible, and it really brings this 60s town to life. All of the demons as well are so beautifully created and so unique in their style and design. When you're not exploring the Underside, you can spend your time gardening, working a part-time job, or trying to improve your skills or friendship levels. Also, the music in this game is incredible. I don't often comment on music in my reviews because it's not something I usually notice in games. I know, I'm terrible. But the music in Bloomtown is spectacular. I want to just listen to this music all day, every day. Here's a little snippet for you. For me, the biggest drawback for this game is the combat, and a large chunk of this game is the turn-based combat, so you'll be doing it a lot. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of it, and it's one of the main things holding me back from playing more of the game. I found it was so repetitive just pressing attack every time, especially as the status effects barely lasted a turn. The final nail in Bloomtown's coffin for me was the second dungeon that you explore. I just found it so confusing to navigate with fake walls and passages that doubled back on themselves constantly, and the maps weren't great either. Overall, I would say that this game probably isn't very cozy, but if you're looking to try something a bit different that's a little bit creepier narrative-wise, maybe this one is one for you. Personally, I would like to go back and finish this one at some point, but for now it's going on my did not finish list. I also haven't finished this next game. After playing around 4 hours of Garden Witch Life, I decided I didn't want to play it anymore. While I missed the hype of Supermarket Simulator, TCG Card Shop Simulator drew me in like a moth to the flame. I love watching card opening videos on YouTube, and while I will never be able to afford that hobby myself, when I saw you could do it in this game, I was instantly addicted. Just like Supermarket Simulator, in TCG Card Shop Simulator, you're running a store. You'll need to order items, stock shelves, check out customers, and will generally be in charge of all the daily runnings of your shop. But instead of stocking groceries, you'll be stocking card packs, plushies, dice, and other gaming memorabilia. You'll need to price them all to stay competitive, and over time you'll be able to unlock new stock or even expand your store for more space. In addition to selling items, you can also run events in your shop where players come in to play cards against each other, which is just such a great idea, and I'm glad the devs added it to the game. My favourite thing by far is opening all of the packs and trying to pull an ultra rare card. But even when I'm not successful, seeing all the different creatures and their art on the cards is its own reward. I've pulled a couple of cards worth over £100, but I am still waiting for that big one. I was instantly obsessed with this game. I've played over 16 hours, and it's just the perfect mindless game to play after work on an evening. You know, when you're tired and can't really concentrate on a plot or solve puzzles, that's when I head to my store to stock shelves. The final game I want to talk about today is Shokudo Underworld, which I also played on the channel if you want to see some of the gameplay. This is a restaurant management game that looks perfect for Halloween, and it's also incredibly cheap at £5. Play as a ghost in the afterlife who has been tasked with opening their own sushi shakudo. Listen to the requests of your customers and then collect ingredients for your chef to whip up their favourite dishes. But this isn't ordinary sushi. With ingredients like dragon eggs and undead spirits, it's definitely got a more whimsical element to cooking rather than something more realistic. The goal of the game is to cook the legendary chawanmushi, but you've got a long way to go until you can do that. I love a good cooking game, so of course I was excited to try this one out, but I found it incredibly grindy, even compared to games like Lemon Cake. It definitely takes a while before you can begin to unlock new things, as earning money in the early game is very slow. It can also be a little chaotic, as you need to head downstairs to collect ingredients and then come back upstairs to give them to the chef to cook, and the customers have very short patience for delivering their orders. Also, at the beginning, you can only carry 4 ingredients at once, while most recipes require 2 ingredients, so you could basically be going downstairs again after every other dish. Oh, and the ingredients don't stack either. This game is also only playable with keyboard and mouse, and I didn't find the controls amazing. For example, it's a little finicky when selecting which recipe you want a chef to cook. As you get further in the game though and unlock higher quality recipes, you will be able to earn money quicker. I also love the addition of the little gachapon machine which you can play to unlock new outfits for your ghost. Overall, if you're looking for something a little bit mindless to play, like Lemon Cake that's on the cheap side, I would definitely recommend this one for you. But if you want something with a little bit more story or a cooking game where you actually cook the meals, I wouldn't recommend this one. Thank you so much for watching this video and listening to all of my ramblings about all of the games that I played this month. I would love to hear your thoughts about these games too. Did you enjoy them? Is there a game I didn't like that you enjoyed? Let me know down in the comments, and hopefully this video helped you make some decisions about some of the recent releases. I hope to see you next time. Bye!